It started with a corner, just one corner of the living room, and a dog who had decided without explanation that his toddler could not be in it. Kira was 6 years old, a German shepherd who had been Tobias Walter's dog before Tobias met Ines, before they had their daughter Petra, before any of the three of them understood what a dog could decide on its own. Kira had been trained. Basic obedience, some scent work through a local club, a dog that responded to 14 commands and had not needed most of them because she had the natural discipline of an animal that understood structure without being forced into it. Petra was 20 months old. She moved the way 20-month-olds move, with purpose and no destination, circular exploration of the same known environment, the kind of wandering that looks random until you watch long enough to realize it is systematic. She had been walking since 11 months. She was fast. The first time Kira herded her away from the northwest corner of the living room, near the baseboard heater, near the low shelf with the DVDs, near the inner wall that backed onto the garage, Tobias watched and said, "She's just playing." He was a civil engineer. He thought in structures. He thought, dog herding toddler, normal. He thought, Kira is exercising an instinct. The second time, he thought the same thing, but with slightly less certainty. The third time, Ines was watching. Petra had walked toward the corner with a board book, the kind of walk that means, I am going to sit here and look at this book. Kira came from across the room, not running, a purposeful crossing, and pressed her body against Petra's side gently, and walked with her, redirecting her path without drama, the way she might have been taught in herding work if any of her training had included herding work. Ines watched this and said, "She's not playing, she has a direction." Tobias said, "She keeps taking her away from that corner." They looked at the corner of the room, baseboard heater on the wall, the low shelf, the inner wall. Ines said, "That's the wall behind the garage." They looked at the corner a second time. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. They had not used the garage in 2 weeks. The previous tenant had left an old propane space heater in the corner of the garage, against the inner wall. The same wall Kira kept steering Petra away from. The fitting at the propane connection had been leaking at a rate that would not trigger their CO detector, which was positioned on the opposite side of the house, and had been placed according to code, which was not the same as being placed according to what was actually building in the room. The leak had been slow and continuous. The propane concentration in the garage was not yet at ignition threshold. But at the base of the inner wall, at floor level where a heavier-than-air gas naturally pools, the concentration was measurable. And on the living room side of that wall, at the baseboard, at the height of a toddler's face, 32 inches from the floor, the concentration was enough that a dog with a working nose at floor level would register it as wrong. Not dangerous, not yet. Wrong. The fire department's inspector, a man named Roberta Canaves, who had been doing residential gas inspections for 19 years, said the word pre-combustion and then used several more words that were more specific. She said the leak was slow enough that it would have taken another 10 to 14 days to reach a concentration that a standard CO and gas detector on the opposite wall would have flagged. She said, floor-level propane accumulation near an ignition source. The baseboard heater was electric, but the connection box at the lower baseboard was the kind of thing that in practice resulted in rapid events. Has your dog ever done something that made no sense until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. She said, your dog was working the wall from the inside. Tobias thought about Kira pressing her nose to the baseboard in the corner on the day it started. He had thought she smelled something. A mouse. Old food. He had looked and found nothing, and told Ines it was probably something in the wall. He had been right about the something, wrong about what it was. He thought about Petra walking toward that corner with her board book, at toddler height, at baseboard height, her face at the exact level where the accumulation would have been densest, and Kira pressing against her side and steering her in the other direction, again and again, for 6 days. Tobias sat in the kitchen that evening, and was quiet for a long time. Enos sat across from him. Neither of them said the thing they were both thinking, which was about the 6 days, and the propane company, and what 10 more days would have looked like. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Kira lay on the kitchen floor with her head on her front paws and her eyes on Petra, who was in the living room with her board book, sitting in a different corner now. A corner that did not smell like anything that required a decision. Kira watched her without moving. The way she had always watched, the way she would watch for the rest of Petra's childhood without anyone asking her to, because nobody had ever asked her to start. The next story involves a dog who refused to leave a sleeping toddler's side for 3 days, and what a pediatric cardiologist found when the family finally listened. Kira lay on the kitchen floor with Petra's laughter coming from the next room, and her eyes were open, and the house was warm, and she exhaled once into the clean air and went back to watching the only corner that had ever mattered.